graduates, UP officials, faculty and guests, Atty Theodore Te.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. You may take your seats, please. Thank you very much. Executive Vice President Theodore Herbosa, representing President Danilo Concepcion, honorable members of the UP Board of Regents, Regents Francis Laurel, Spaki Farolan, Annalisa Fulbadora, Ramon Guillermo, Ivy Taroma, Chancellors Fernando Sanchez and Lisa Coro, other UP system officials, UP Manila Chancellor Dr. Menchit Padilla and her officers of administration, Philippine General Hospital Director Gap Legaspi, deans of the 9 degree granting units of UP Manila, the class of 2019, family members, spouses, partners, significant others, children, friends, and loved ones of class 2019, ladies and gentlemen. They say that at commencement rites like these, we are reminded of 3 truths. That the degrees that will be conferred on you presently are yours, the fruit of much effort, hopefully, sacrifice, and work. That this ceremony is for your parents, spouses, partners, significant others, family, and friends who stood by you throughout your life in UP Manila. That what you do with your degrees after today belongs to the people of the Philippines, whose name you carry. So first things first, congratulations, members of UP Class 2019 of UP Manila, on your graduation from the University of the Philippines. You are crossing over from the relatively secure, if one may characterize Padre Faura and Pedro Hill as secure, environment of the academic life, where your life then revolved around 2 R's, readings and reports, or readings and rounds, or readings and rob plays, to the so-called third R, the real world, where you as UP graduates would be expected to preside over yet 2 more R's, reforms and revolutions. But today also is a day to recognize those who have given much to get you here. Your parents, spouses, significant others, partners, children, family members, friends, and loved ones. This day is for them also, because in a very real way, it is as if they went through UP Manila with you. As you studied, you have been loved, encouraged, supported, tolerated, fed, prayed for, and sustained by them. In them, you found people to tell your stories about terror professors too, who patiently endured your rants, who tried to understand your hours, who worried about your taking permanent residence at CBTL at Rob Place. All throughout, their words and presence were a balm to your wounded souls, especially on days when nothing went right, and no measure of comfort could be found in spirits of other sorts. And because the busyness of your stay at UP Manila might not have given you the time and opportunity to say it, we want to take this opportunity now to salute you, to applaud you, and to thank you. So may I ask the members of Class 2019 to stand and to turn to those who loved you through your stay at UP Manila, your parents, spouses, partners, and significant others, children, family members, and loved ones who are here with you. Thank you. You may now be seated. Now I can say that my speech was interrupted by at least one standing ovation. Finally, we also want to recognize today those whose efforts have been instrumental, though largely unsung, and often underappreciated in transforming, shepherding, mentoring, and training you. Those who have made it their mission to transform raw potential into fulfilled promise, to channel youthful passion into mature purpose, and whose professional DNA now runs in you. Let us take this time to thank your professors and mentors. And not less importantly, let us also take the time today to recognize those whose efforts are truly unsung, the administrative personnel whose sweat and toil provide the backbone upon which UP Manila operated efficiently and well. When I was invited by Dr. Nimia to speak to you today, I asked about the theme of the gathering, Scholar ng Bayan, Manindigan para sa Katotohanan, Katarungan at Karapatan, a theme that resonates with me very deeply. As you may have noticed from the introduction by Dr. Padilla, it is something that I consider very, very important to me. And so I would like to speak to you about justice, about truth, about rights. And I think it is most appropriate that I speak before the premier Institute for Health Sciences, that I speak also about life. These are not normal times. If these were normal times, you would not need a lawyer to speak to you about standing up for truth, justice, and human rights. These are not normal times. It is wartime. We are in a war that is being waged on many fronts, in many forms. The war against life and due process continues because extrajudicial killings remain unabated and unaddressed. The war against truth continues because lies, falsehoods, and fake news have become part of the daily fabric of our lives. The war against decency continues because the public discourse has coarsened with foul language substituting for policy pronouncements. The war against accountability continues because public institutions mandated to safeguard accountability have been and continue to be disparaged and assaulted. The war against integrity continues because many courageous civil servants who have dared to speak up or speak out have been humiliated, silenced, and in some instances even removed. Our sovereignty has been imperiled. We continue to find ourselves in this war that has claimed many casualties, the dead that have strewn our streets, the widowed and the orphaned, but also our very sense of self, who we are as a nation and as a people. It is a war that has struck at the very sense of our regard for life, for dignity, for truth, and for justice. It is a war that has left many of us desensitized, even bereft of hope. It is a war that is not of our choosing, but it is a war that we are all called to wage. How are we to wage this war? Let me propose 4 ways. First, remember always who we are. Remember always whose we are. Scholar ng bayan. We come from the people. We belong to the people. That is our identity, our burden, our charge, our responsibility. And as soon as your titles and degrees are conferred upon you, you join the long line of maroon and green who find themselves confronted daily with the consciousness of that identity. Scholar ng bayan, para kanino, para saan? What do our degrees mean outside of the ornamental value of that piece of parchment hanging on a wall? I'm sure We all have different answers to that question. Maybe for some, you haven't really come around to answering that question yet. What I do know is this: your titles and degrees mean nothing if receiving them today is the end of it. When I took my master's some time back, one of my professors had a very distinct way of teaching. He would devote one session to one chapter of his book. He would talk about it, not repeating the contents, but contextualizing it within the scenarios and situations we found ourselves. Then he would devote the next session to just taking questions from all of us. That was how we were graded, by our questions to him. That made me realize that while it is perfectly acceptable to not know all the answers, many of us in that class didn't. It is absolutely inexcusable to not ask questions. That professor was a sprightly 70-year-old with great intellectual curiosity and intense academic passions. Listening to him, I realized that curiosity and passion defy age and station. And it is that curiosity and passion that spell the difference between a degree that simply hangs on a wall and one that is lived out fully. It is the curiosity and courage to ask questions, and the passion and determination to find answers that will make your degrees meaningful. The asking will lead to acting, and it is in the process of asking and acting that your degrees take on flesh and muscle, blood and bone. But flesh and muscle, blood and bone mean nothing if there is no soul, no spirit. So if asking and acting are flesh and muscle, blood and bone, then being good and finding ways to help are soul and spirit. The challenge to you, class of 2019, is to continue asking and acting, confronting and challenging, being good and finding ways to help wherever you may find yourselves in. Remember who you are. Remember whose you are. Scholar ng bayan. Scholar para sa bayan. Second, find ways to help. There are many ways that UP Manila graduates can help. Let me just mention two in the interest of time. The College of Medicine has one thing I wish the College of Law has, and this might be a controversial statement: a return service agreement. If I had my way, I would require all entering freshmen at the College of Law to sign a return service agreement to render free legal service before being allowed to take the bar. The return service agreement is a concrete mechanism that allows you to help. And in a time when human life is apparently cheaper than the cost of the bullet it takes to snuff it out, we need all the help we can get. So for those of you with RSAs, do not look at them as obligation or burden, or even just as a way to give back. Look at it as your way of loving our country, loving our people. And our country is direly in need of love. And one can never have too much love. Second, we cannot continue working in silos, each doing our own thing, although expertly done. We must learn to work together. As a lawyer, I have had the happy experience of working with many experts from UP Manila. Again, I can tell you many stories, but in the interest of time, I will limit myself to a few. I will put my good friend, Dr. Atty Fortune, on the spot by mentioning her as an example. Many years back, while working on a case that brought both of us to the halls of the Senate, we saw how badly lawyers needed to learn about medicine and how badly doctors needed to understand lawyers. So the two of us came up with a radical idea to transform legal medicine as it was being taught in law school into law and science, marrying the law and evidence that is being taught to lawyers and the principles of medicine and forensic pathology that is being taught to doctors, to teach law students the real legal medicine. Tati became UP Law's first non-lawyer to teach a law class. I am still waiting for my opportunity to return the favor at the UP College of Medicine. Of course, Tati is also a favorite resource person to train interns at my legal clinic and a favorite witness in cases involving EJ case. Many years ago, and they may not remember this, and they may be surprised that I know this, doctors from the UP College of Medicine and the Philippine General Hospitals helped us save a man from death row. His name was Marlon Parazo. He was deaf, he was mute, he was mentally challenged. Yet a trial court and the Supreme Court itself found him guilty and sentenced him to death because the court did not believe his testimony. Yes, based on the records, this deaf-mute spoke. Encountering Marlon in jail demonstrated to us, his lawyers, what the courts refused to appreciate, that he was incapable of speaking, and whatever means of communication he was capable of, no one could understand. We needed to translate these findings into proof. So after many attempts, we managed to convince the Supreme Court to allow him to be examined by experts from where else? UP Manila. And in short order, experts from UPPGH confirmed what we, the lawyers, had known all along. He was deaf and mute with a mental age of 9 years old. Those experts were Dr. Maria Luz Casimiro Quirubin, Meredith Castro, Dr. Grace Orteza, and now Dean Charlotte Chong. There are many more examples that time does not allow me to give, but I think you see the point. There is an intersection where law and science meets, and it is frequently at that intersection where truth, unvarnished, objective, whole, and absolute is found. Without science, law would be left where we are now, relying on unlearned opinions, speculating on causes based on human perception and often simply imagination. When lives are taken and the truth about the taking of life itself is hijacked, law finds itself at a great difficulty because law operates on facts that can be proven, and without the use of science frequently to find those facts, law becomes irrelevant. That is why in combating impunity arising from unaddressed EJ case, law must partner with science to enhance its capacity to find the truth. Third, be a counterculture. In the UP, we are taught to not merely be experts at our chosen field of study, but also to be principled and passionate advocates for genuine and meaningful change. To not only be solid scientists, but to also be critical thinkers. To not just be steeped in the language of the human body and the human condition, but to also be fluent in the language of human rights, economics, development, philosophy, history, arts, and culture. To not just tend to the ills of our patients, but also to address the ills of society. To speak out for those who cannot speak, and to empower those who find themselves powerless. In the UP, we are encouraged to be innovators and creative thinkers, to challenge convention and tradition, and in so doing, create new conventions and traditions. To master lessons not only within the confines of our campus, but also life learnings in the line of fire, which the late Leon Alejandro described as the place of honor. We are trained to lead in every field we find ourselves. That is the identity, mandate, and mission of every UP graduate. In doing so, we are called many times to be a counterculture, to stand for principle even when everyone else is taking the path of least resistance. In the face of this war against truth, justice, and human rights, do not take the path of least resistance. Insist on what is true, what is just, and what is right. Do that through scholarly research, through the use of science to find the truth, through multidisciplinary engagements that allow us to see beyond where we find ourselves now. Fourth, be good people. The question of producing great doctors, dentists, health professionals is ultimately a question of character. And it is one that is peculiarly addressed to institutions of learning like UP Manila. More than just allowing mastery of our respective fields, we must strive to inculcate not only knowledge, but also to develop character, the conviction of what is good, right, and just, to be able to do the right thing and to resist compromising one's ideals and values. This requires courage, perseverance, and fortitude. It also requires the strength to persist to challenges and struggles, and to choose what is right, even when it is difficult, even when you stand alone and everyone else is against you. I have no doubt, class of 2019, that your training and your formation in UP Manila, in your 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, has molded you to become counterculture to the world and to be good people. Ours is a culture where the pressure to conform is very great. Pakikisama, bigayan, smooth interpersonal relationships are highly valued in Philippine culture. And the pressure to just say yes, to remain silent, to tolerate, to go along with the crowd, even if it is not right, is very strong. To be able to do the right thing in the face of opposition requires courage, strength of character, and integrity. I said earlier that these are not normal times. These are times of war. And so allow me to end with a few words written many years ago from a lawyer to his son on whether it was worth his son's time to study law. Though these were written by a lawyer, the words could apply to us today, and they could very well have been written for you. In the letter he wrote to his son, the lawyer lists down all that he sees that is wrong with the world. And from his tone, he sounds as if he were discouraging his son from taking up law. But then he writes, I quote, "Yet the truth remains true, that never have our people had greater need than today for great lawyers, for young men and women determined to be great lawyers. Great lawyers, not brilliant lawyers. A scoundrel may be and often is brilliant. And the greater the scoundrel, the more brilliant the lawyer. But only a good person can become a great lawyer. For only a person who understands the weaknesses of men because he has conquered them in himself, who has the courage to pursue her ideals though she knows them to be unattainable, who tempers his conviction with respect for those of others because he realizes he may be mistaken, who deals honorably and fairly with all, because to do otherwise would diminish her as well as them, Only such a person could so command respect that he could persuade and need never resort to force. Only such a person could become a great lawyer. Otherwise, what you are speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. For men and women of this kind, our country will always have need, now more than ever. True, there is very little that people of goodwill can do now to end the madness that holds our nation in its grip. But we can, even now, scrutinize our past, try to pinpoint where we went wrong, determine what led to this madness and what nurtured it, and how, when it ends, we can make sure that it need never happen again. For this madness must end, if not in my lifetime, at least in yours. We Filipinos are proverbially patient, but we are also infinitely tough and ingeniously resourceful. Our entire history as a people has been a quest for freedom and dignity, and we will not be denied our dreams. So this madness will end. The rule of force will yield to the rule of law. Then the country will need its great lawyers, its great doctors, its great engineers, its great economists and managers, the best of its men and women to clear the shambles and restore the foundations of that noble and truly Filipino society for which our forefathers fought, bled, and died. Be good people. In the face of all that is going on in our world, we do not need to become the monsters we seek to defeat. On top of all this, always, 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 put the people first. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. Isang maalam na pagbati sa inyong pagtatapos.